Welcome to Grief Observed. My name is Kevin Weaver. I'm your host today, and with me is Mr. Gary Martinson. Gary Martinson is, well, he told me he's Mr. Bison, right? Is that how you're best known up here?
I guess that is true. I've been doing Bison for about 50 years now, so but in the White Mountains for the last 25 years. So it's been a wonderful experience to bring the name Bison, the animal Bison to this community, starting in Heber Overgaard back 20 years ago, and certainly in the Show Low area for the last 15, 18 years. So.
Excellent. Well, before I get to the method to my madness, because bringing somebody on from Buffalo Bills to talk about grieving in that process might seem a little strange. And if you guys could put up the numbers for me, because I get lost if I don't have those numbers counting down to when we're done.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about Buffalo Bills, because I stumbled on Buffalo Bills several months ago. A friend of mine took me in, and I have to say, best chicken wings on the mountain, truly. I order them plain. They're that good. So, what was behind Bison and all that you do?
Well, it wasn't a long thought process in making the decision to open up Buffalo Bills, but I've been a collector of Buffalo Bills stuff and Bison for a lot of years. I've had a museum down at Bison Ranch. I had a museum in Scottsdale, so it's been a passion of mine since North Dakota days back in the '60s, and so when I had the opportunity to kind of start displaying some of the Buffalo Bill stuff. My son, who has been my builder, Scott, he always says, Dad, you go into this because you like to decorate. I'm not so sure you know anything about the restaurant business, but when we'll get to that, why I don't have to know anything about the restaurant business. But I thought I love to be able to get some of what my passion out to the public and show them, some things that are really cool. I mean, Buffalo Bill was a legend back in the late '80s and even
Sure.
early in the 1900s, and his life and his story should not go away. We need to keep it out there.
Really, it is quite cool to be with somebody that's so passionate about a key figure in history that you'll basically devote a development to him. And I'll give you a chance to stroke what you've done and pat yourself on the back. You were telling me that Ed Muter just the other day gave you a call and said, hey, I wanted to tell you that you really changed the landscape. You have really positively affected the city of Show Low, and it's true.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing about it was such a win-win. I mean, I'm thankful that I've had this opportunity in life to participate in a community that was so supportive and so much part of a team to do what we all thought was the right thing, and hopefully we've done that. Certain economic conditions changed, and we had to readjust, but at the same time, I was never driven at all to ever move out of the White Mountains. I'm from a small town in North Dakota, and we all knew each other, and that's what I have loved about this area, is that they're just great people, and it's whenever you do something, you have an ability to socialize, you have an ability to bring some hospitality into the group, and I've always said, even Bison Homes was always, we dealt with hospitality. We were dealing with a group of people that wanted to have a good time. They were a to-do group. Can we go fishing? Can we go hunting? Can we go hiking? And so it was never a matter of the all-American dream. We just wanted to create a lifestyle that them and their families could come up and enjoy, and no better place in Arizona than Show Low.
Wow. Well, and I echo that sentiment, and I'll tell you truthfully, people come to this community because they are looking for not just a nice place to live, but they're looking for a sense of community, and they're finding it. And so here's the method to the madness. I believe as a grief counselor that one way to get through your grief and a difficulty in your life is to tell your story. And telling your story just as many times as you need to tell your story. And so if you're going through a very personal, private, sacred moment in your life, the death of a loved one, you find a clergy or a best friend, somebody that you can really trust and confide in. But beyond that, I think we need, there's so many people in this community that have wonderful stories and life experiences to share. And I was thinking about putting together a storytellers club, and I thought what would be a good backdrop or the perfect venue. And eating chicken wings at Buffalo Bill's the other day, I thought this would be it. So I approached Deb, and she thought that it was a great idea. And what we're still working on this, so watch the newspaper, look for flyers, pay attention to this program. We'll give you some dates about the storytelling program that we want to get started. But how we're wanting to launch this is, what is the date of your...
It's August 11th.
On August 11th is the second annual Buffalo Bills Day.
That is correct, yep.
And so storytelling is going to be a part of that event, and we're hoping that we can kind of launch our club from that event. So that being said, tell us about Buffalo Bill Days. What can we expect?
Well, it's going to be an all-day event. It'll start at about 11 in the morning and go till people decide they're leaving late in the afternoon, maybe, or early evening. We're going to highlight the show with a very good friend of mine. His name is Marshall Trimble. He's the Arizona State historian, and he certainly is one of Arizona's great storytellers. And he will love to hear what your passion is and the fact that you're going to pursue this.
Sure.
Because he does that all over the United States practically,
Right,
and
right.
tells stories, and and him and I have talked about the different things that we need to keep alive. He's obviously a fairly Western
Right.
cowboy kind of a guy, so when I first opened up my museum in Scottsdale, I brought Marshall in to say, hey Marshall, what do you think, and what I wanted to do was I wanted to tell a story within this thing. I did not want to just display artwork, because some of it was good and some of it was not good, but it all had a meaningful presence to the general public,
Yeah.
and so he came in and viewed it and said, Gary, this is probably one of the finest museums in Arizona, and I said, I'm going to quote you on that, and let's stay friends. So he's been a great supporter of us, and he loves all of these kinds of events. So he will be here.
Excellent.
Along with Danny White will be here.
Danny White, the football Danny White?
Yeah, the Dallas
Excellent.
Cowboys legend quarterback.
Yeah.
He is also, he loves the Sholo area. He's got a place up here. And all of these guys are, they're Arizona natives, and
Right.
so even though I'd like to say that I'm an Arizona native, I spent 36 years in North Dakota, but
Right.
so I was happy to find Arizona, happy to find Sholo. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna have music all day. We'll have storytellers, as you mentioned. And one of our highlights is a friend of mine that happens to own Moose Henry's,
Yep.
Doug. He's going to put on a pig roast there that we'll be selling tickets for. We'll be probably opening up the pig roast around 4 o'clock. So it's just going to be a fun family event that should last all day.
Excellent. So, really this is all kind of fitting into how I was hoping that this would transpire, because Gary and I, we didn't speak before he came just moments ago.
Yeah.
And folks that are watching, please get involved in this event. Again, we're talking about grief, storytelling, ways to maybe reinvent your life, ways to express your passion. Getting involved in these kind of events, I assure you that it will spark something within you. Something perhaps will come forward that you never even really considered. And so that's why it's very important to not just be a part of a wonderful, caring, giving community, but get involved in that community.
Yeah, and hopefully you'll have the opportunity to bring on some of these families that have been here forever. And when I see some of these gentlemen and ladies, I think, gosh, if they could just tell us about this place, 50 years ago or 75 years ago, and it'll be phenomenal for the kids and those that choose to make Show Low, the White Mountains, their home.
Oh, Gary, I couldn't agree more. I've really had, the privilege of being a hospice chaplain for nearly 17 years now, and I find myself often with the old timers who are dying, of course, but the stories are so many, and the things that have happened and the life experiences are beyond any type of value that we can place on them.
Yeah, for sure. As part of that, I lost my mom here about a year ago, but she was 101, and she had, the last years, she had her mind with her all the time, and we made sure that we heard about the early 1900s and our families that go back into all the Scandinavian countries.
Exactly.
We're kind of an early group here in the United States. So, but that was, you're absolutely right. We gotta hear from these people, and we gotta document it somehow.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not fair to them to just let them kind of exist, and many of them feel like they have nothing more to offer. Certainly, they can tell their story, and we're doing ourselves such a disservice by not participating and pulling from them the very wisdom and the very experiences that we need.
Yep,
so
absolutely.
yeah. Visited with an old man in Hebrew Overgard many years ago, and I told you this, but it's so true. He told me that, and he was probably quoting from Mark Twain, I suppose, but he said, dying old men are like burning libraries. And I'm not one that will easily let go of that knowledge and that wisdom and that insight.
Yep.
So,
when I first discovered the White Mountains, and I was building and developing down in the valley, and I wanted to get into the mountains and get into the smaller community, and I really developed Bison Ranch as kind of a town that's larger than what I grew up in, Mm-hmm. But there was a guy there named Lewis Tinney, who was on the board of supervisors and from Hebrew Overgard area, and one of the great human beings, and he just supported me to the ends to say, he always wanted you to do the right thing, but that's what we all are expected to do. That's why we're here, and but there are those kinds of personalities that have been so helpful in making us, at that time, a younger man,
right.
be excited about what you're doing.
So exactly. And so now that some of us in this place are approaching the older man versus the younger man, we do have the responsibility to continue on, share our stories. And so, again, as we begin to wrap this up, be looking for a storytellers group. We're thinking about calling it Fools Howl Storytellers. I don't know, write in, give me a call if you've got a better suggestion or an idea or a name for that. And then, Gary, we've got 1 minute left. Recap, give us the information, date, time for second annual Buffalo Bills Days.
Okay, obviously it's at the Buffalo Bills Tavern and Grill, which is 1 mile west of Highway 60 and 260. You can't miss the sign that says Buffalo Bills Tavern and Grill. We'll be having things going on and events throughout the day, highlighted with our state historian Marshall Trimble, Danny White, and storytellers and music, and it'll be fun. We have a place called the Watering Hole, which is an outdoor event right next to Buffalo Bills, which weather permitting, we'll spend a lot of time out there throwing cornholes and just having a good time with our neighbors. So
excellent. It sounds like a blast. So I challenge you, be there. Wonderful event, participate in. Look forward to the Storytellers Club that we'll be starting. And Gary, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, my friend.
We'll see you back here in just a moment. I'm going to tell you a story. Welcome back to A Grief Observed. Last segment, we spent a few minutes with Gary Martinson from the Bison Golf, I guess you'd say, conglomerate. He's really made quite an impact on our community. And one of the things that he shared with me off camera was the fact that, the whole reason and the purpose for the Bison and the Buffalo Bill and all that he's involved with, he was quite a fan of Buffalo Bill growing up, and he had a tremendous passion for keeping this character alive, and so he created museums, and he was looking for a way to continue to tell the story of Buffalo Bill. And so this man, really not seeking anything more than just acting on his passion, he's been able to tell his story. And as we mentioned in the first segment, storytelling is so important to overcoming or getting through a difficult experience in life. It's a very important part of grieving. And as we continue over the next months to come to examine grief and that process, we'll find that as human beings, we grieve over so many different things in our life. A young child will grieve over the loss of a pet. A young girl will grieve over the loss of a boyfriend. A highly driven academic student will grieve over a failing grade on a test. And the ways that we overcome or get through that grief is by telling our story. Well, the other day, I was truthfully driving down the street. I took in a deep breath of a freshly cut lawn, and my mind went back to a place in childhood. And you know, I often grieve over the losses of childhood. So much of my childhood was just a blast, and it was a wonderful adventure growing up in northwestern New York. I just drove past the freshly cut lawn, and man, oh man, how my olfactory senses exploded with nostalgia. In my mind's eye, there I was, Reggie. Now, Reggie was the nickname I claimed for myself as a kid. I modeled my style of baseball after my childhood hero, Reggie Jackson of the Oakland Athletics. I was wearing the familiar green cap with yellow bill displaying the recognizable A's insignia. I had on a green t-shirt with Dick's used car sales on the back, an old pair of blue jeans with my tattered pond water smelling Converse sneakers. Walking toward the plate, Coach reminded me to grab a batting helmet. I managed to mush the one-size-fits-all helmet onto my head. The crimson-red helmet, as I remember, they all looked the same, as I took my place in the batter's box, which was now a mud hole because of all the previous batters and the late afternoon rain. Right about now, I was wishing that the game would have been rained out, but it wasn't. It was a beautiful evening. Like it or not, I was up to bat. Sadly, unlike Reggie Jackson, the home run blasting, baseball smashing, power hitting all-star, I was the worst hitter on the team. Maybe in all of the Holly Little League. Maybe the worst hitter in all of the world. I was batted in the 9th spot because I was king of the whiffers. Easy out was always the chant from the opponent's bench. You know, those hurtful insults and sardonic slurs, they still echo in my mind to this day. I hung my head. Many times with the baseball bat still resting on my shoulder, just after the predictable strike 3 was called, I thought about crying. The only thing that would have made striking out and crying worse would have been standing there and peeing my pants, which I nearly did once. So week after week, I learned to squeeze back the tears and take it because, well, it was true. Honestly, if there was such a thing as the Little League scouting report, the line on me would have read, good hustle, great glove, cannon for an arm, but just cannot hit the side of a barn. I just could not hit. I was terrible. I was a defensive star and offensive liability. That was me, the fat kid who could not hit in a clutch situation, or any situation for that matter. I thought about bunting once, but I was too husky. That's what my grandma called me, to run fast enough to beat out the dead end ball to first base. I don't get it. In backyard pickup games, my hitting was nearly unmatched. I was a true sandlot slugger. Gary Barnett and I were always the first and second in our makeshift home run hitting derbies. As I look back now, it really was no big deal, but to a 6th grade kid, it was way cool. It was my claim to fame. That crown was all I had. Anyway, there I was in a classic bottom of the 7th inning. Little League plays only 7 innings. Bases loaded predicament. To most, a real thriller. To me, a perfect storm. There were 2 outs, and our team needed a bases-clearing hit to win the game. As luck would have it, B.J. Drager was pitching a gem of a game for his team that balmy summer evening. I know, it sounds like Mighty Casey up the bat, and it certainly resembles that story, but honestly, this is the truth. We were the Athletics, they were the Dodgers. They were unbeaten. We had not won a single game. Coach John offered me as much encouragement as he could muster. The situation was hopeless. "Come on, Reggie," he eye-rolled to shout. "You can do it." Even though he and I both knew I couldn't do it. I looked over at him and sadly shrugged my shoulders. As soon as I stepped into the batter's box, everyone's attention shifted. The game was over. The assistant coach began packing the duffel bag with equipment. Parents began to summons their ball players' siblings from the sandboxes and swings. Those with no child in the game began to make their way to the car-lined shoulders of the gravel-packed country road. I felt like Charlie Brown in a Peanuts cartoon. Ugh! I think I'm going to cry. The moment of truth had suddenly arrived. Cousin BJ reared back and let the first pitch fly. It flew past me faster than a mad mud hornet. I swung as hard as I could. The ball popped in the catcher's mitt before I got the bat halfway through the strike zone. "You're swinging late, Reggie," came the advice from the bench. I missed BJ's fastball by a country mile. So what else was new? The next pitch was thrown in the same location. BJ's control was always amazing. What a jerk. The only difference this time was that I was way out in front of the pitch. A changeup, of course. "Strike 2!" sang out the boisterous janitor acting as umpire, who obviously was in a hurry to get back to cleaning urinal stalls. It was the same old too familiar tune. I considered conceding the third strike and heading back to the sun-rotted wooden bench when BJ hurled another heater. What happened next was nothing less than amazing. In a frustrated reaction to my coach yelling, "Swing!" I instinctively closed my eyes and swung. I swung with all my might. In response to the unfamiliar sound, my baseball bat hitting the baseball, a sublime musical interlude seemed to stop all time. The sun-setting sky split open, revealing an angelic ensemble of the most heavenly nature. A bona fide miracle had occurred. The benevolent gods of Mudville took pity on me that humid June evening in northwestern New York. It was as though some unseen hand had guided the ball to the barrel of my 19-ounce Louisville Slugger. I made contact. Crack! A once-in-a-lifetime smash hit. My only hit all season, a grand slam. Honest, that old Spalding cowhide took off like a missile, rocketing over the center field's head. The scorched baseball smacked down in the middle of the Hollyhawks varsity outfield. It rolled over to the game on the other Little League field. The ball was hit so hard and so far that no one even gave chase. One outfielder just threw down his mitt. Besides, the Reds were playing the Mets over there, and we all knew better than to interrupt their game. Finally, the setting sun was nearly gone, its radiant glow but a reflection. It was almost too dark to see. With my head held high, I walked home. My life changed that day. King of the Whiffers. I had a story, something that I would remember to this day. The simple smell of a freshly cut lawn brought all that back to a vivid memory. I was there. And my encouragement, folks, is tell your story. Get involved in the community. We have so much to share to one another. We have so much to give. I encourage comments, thoughts, stories. Maybe you'd like to come sometime and share your story on A Grief Observed. But for now and for me, This has been A Grief Observed, and I thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next month.